Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. What a great full room we have, and so much enthusiasm for our stormwater. This is just our Living Stormwater Week. We've had basically events every day around integrating stormwater at Schoolyards, and it's been really wonderful, and I think the beginning of a really great dialogue for our city. We're thrilled to have Birgit Teichmann here from Germany, and we're really just so thrilled to have her input and expertise for our edification in San Francisco. And hopefully we can get you all today on board with new training, technical assistance, and a vision for going forward as a city. I'm Rosie Jenks. I work here in the SFPUC. So today we're going to go over with me, Rosie Jenks from the PUC, Sharon Danks from Green Schoolyards America, and Nick where's Nick? Nick Kastner from the school district is going to be speaking on behalf of the school district, and we're just really excited to have our three groups working together to have this dialogue about integrating schoolyards and stormwater. Then we're going to have a presentation by Birgit, our expert from Berlin. We'll be having a network and coffee break again, so we'll be able to get up and stretch. Then we're going to get into the technical concepts coming from Berlin with Birgit, and then we're going to have a small break. And then we're going to break out into small group discussions, and I think you've all been assigned, you'll be able to see on your name tag to small groups based on sort of your area of work, and then we'll sort of break out and talk about troubleshooting and looking towards the future for San Francisco. So I'm going to talk about the sort of PUC, the SFPUC's context and why we're working on this topic and where we're all headed. So my name is Rosie Jenks again, and I work at the Urban Watershed Management Program at the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. Today we're going to discuss how we're integrating watershed management, green infrastructure, and non-potable reuse into the city to really help us get ready for adapting to climate change and better managing our resources. And I'm going to really talk about our special emphasis on schools and our school partnerships. So it's our hope that this dialogue is the beginning of an ongoing conversation at the city level about how to integrate the work of all of our agencies. For those of you new to the PUC, we have three separate enterprises. We have a power enterprise, a water enterprise, and a wastewater enterprise. Our power enterprise generates an average of 1.7 billion kilowatt hours of hydroelectric power that we serve to municipal facilities throughout San Francisco. The water enterprise provides water to 2.6 million people in the Bay Area, and that includes over the 800,000 people in San Francisco. And throughout the wastewater enterprise, which is where I work and my team works, we operate a combined sewer system where we collect and treat both wastewater and stormwater in our system, and both operate the collection system and the wastewater treatment plants before they discharge to the bay and the ocean. So this is a diagram of our combined sewer. You can see that the pipes that collect from your roof drain and your toilets are the same pipes that collect the runoff on the streets. Oops, that totally just broke. Okay, thanks. Excuse me. And so when it rains, the runoff is collected into those same set of pipes. And we have what are called large transport storage boxes. Does that work so I can show you? So these are large box structures that are located at the low end of our city. They're sort of like moats that collects both stormwater and sewage into the same set of pipes, where then it can be held and then pumped back to our treatment plant. Under intense storms of long durations, we can discharge that stormwater and sewage into the bay or the ocean. And approximately about 90% of our flows are treated at our wastewater treatment plant, which is different than most cities throughout the Bay Area where the sewers are separated, and you see these drains to the bay, sort of stencils on your catch basins. And so we're in really great shape in San Francisco because we can hold and treat that stormwater, and we remain in regulatory compliance. But when we do flood or discharge, we are discharging combined sewage. So it is a concern that we would like to improve upon. Like many cities in the country, we're facing a lot of challenges. Drought, we live in drought country and it's getting worse with climate change. We need to diversify our water supply. The majority of our pipes are more than 70 years old. We live in earthquake country. while we're in compliance with those combined sewer discharges that I mentioned earlier, we have a very active community who care about these, and we want to do better. Climate change, we're already seeing impacts with flooding and sea level rise. And under very high tide events, flows are coming back into our system. Environmental justice, we have an environmental justice policy, which requires that we ensure that we're not disproportionately impacting those people that live in the proximity of our infrastructure. And so we're trying to integrate that and community participation better into our decision-making processes. And future regulatory compliance. We don't anticipate that the regulations that were in place when we built our system will be those in the future. And environmental stewardship. San Francisco is a green and engaged community, and look at the turnout that we can get on a day like today. There's really evidence towards that. So we are implementing new technologies. Green infrastructure is the focus of today for stormwater management. And the PUC has a slightly different definition of green infrastructure than other places. You'll see it used to describe green spaces. So green infrastructure, as defined by the PUC, is a set of engineered, sustainable stormwater management tools that slow down, clean, and route the stormwater to keep it out of our combined sewer system. We've added the word sustainable to help distinguish it from gray infrastructure strategies. And when we talk about sustainable, we're talking about using infrastructure that helps protect receiving water quality, water resources through reuse of stormwater, provides habitat. We're going to evaluate our projects on their ability to minimize carbon footprints, such as using less materials, construction emissions, and energy and chemicals, and maximizing plantings. And sustainable is being used to describe things that promote natural processes. And this really applies to green infrastructure for us, which is about using soils and plants to slow and infiltrate stormwater wherever possible. And then one of the things that we're using as an agency is really looking for places where we can maximize multi-benefit projects. So taking projects where we have scarce resources and trying to get as many uses and end benefits out of them as possible. Okay, so some of the technologies that we're talking about that may not be familiar to everyone are green roofs, cisterns, pervious paving, rain barrels, creek daylighting, and constructed wetlands. So really with the vision of green infrastructure is how do you take a built-out gray city and make it perform like a green space from the way water runs on it. The program that I work for and manage is called the Urban Watershed Management Program. And so our goal is to really use green infrastructure to protect water quality and use it to slow and reduce stormwater from entering the sewers in the receiving water body, promoting infiltration wherever possible, reducing the use of chemicals that we use to treat and convey stormwater, and wherever possible to revitalize natural watershed functions, so taking advantage of the natural soils and topography that we have in the city, and provide community benefits. And that's that sort of multi-benefit outcome that our definition went over before. So we have been managing stormwater in a bunch of different ways, and our program has been interacting with stormwater. And so today's workshop is really building on these other efforts, but in 2010, we passed something called the Stormwater Management Ordinance, which I'll talk a little bit more in detail. We've been building early implementation projects, which are demonstration projects associated with our sewer system improvement program. And we've been implementing watershed stewardship grants, which I'll talk about, and then we oversee the redevelopment areas and make sure that green infrastructure is implemented on them. So as you can see, San Francisco is beginning to have a fairly diverse portfolio of green infrastructure out there. So really today, we're gonna be implementing, or talking about implementing on schools. So why do we care about schools? We have these new regulations. We've been working with a bunch of designers and people in the community complying with our regulations, and we're really wanting to sort of step it up and bring the best practices and technical assistance to make these projects really amplify many benefits. They're large impervious surfaces. Schools, as you can see, are some of the largest landowners in San Francisco. And when we did our public engagement work associated with watershed planning, the top place that our public wanted us to invest green infrastructure dollars was at schools and parks. And clearly, anytime we engage with the schools, there's great opportunities to educate future ratepayers. So the Stormwater Management Ordinance that I mentioned earlier was adopted in 2010. And if you're a project in San Francisco that disturbs more than 5,000 square feet, you're required now to implement on-site stormwater management. And so if you are a developer building a project, you come into our office and work with our team to review the project, and we help check your calculations and make sure you're in compliance. And over 20 schools to date have done this. And I think we're at over 230, Sarah? 230 projects at this point in the city have implemented the Stormwater Management Ordinance. This is a little bit of data about the watershed, the school's role in the watershed. There's 118 schools, making up 406 acres of property. They're about 64% impervious on average. They consume 92 million gallons of water per year and produce more than 147 million gallons per year of stormwater runoff. So we've been doing watershed planning, as I mentioned earlier, where we are doing a sewer system improvement program, which is a 30-year look ahead at how we will build out our sewers in San Francisco. And one of the key elements of it is looking at collection system planning, and that is the drains all the way from streets down, taking runoff from every neighborhood and street and building and bringing it down to our sewer systems, our wastewater treatment plants. And so the collection system is the gutters, it's the pipes, and it's the pumps. And so this watershed assessment is a watershed look, planning look, a watershed approach for looking at how to plan at each of our individual watersheds in San Francisco. It's a planning unit that we've looked at all the opportunities for green and gray solutions for managing our collection system, schools being a key opportunity, and looking for project synergies with other agencies. And so here's an example where we're looking at an individual watershed and noticing all the places that it's not meeting our levels of service, and then looking at all the places where there is an opportunity for either a gray or green infrastructure solution, and where there are problems overlapped with opportunities, we're coming up with project concepts. And so these are being folded into a suite of projects, programs, and policies that we will be recommending for going forward for investment in the future with our commission. We've looked at a lot of the schools and can tell you how suitable they are for green infrastructure. And a lot of the proposals that will be coming out in the spring will identify which schools we think will be the best opportunities for investment for green infrastructure. Another major part of our program has been education and outreach, and that is the watershed steward. One of the elements of that is the watershed stewardship program. A lot of you may have already taken advantage. Can we get a raised hand if you've applied for a watershed stewardship grant? Yes, Kat, yeah, and Carla, yeah. And so these have been small grants that we've been implementing and trying to inspire the community to take out impervious cover and install rainwater harvesting systems and drought-tolerant plantings. And to date, we've granted over 650,000 grants to schools. But you can see they're small grants. We also are doing a lot of education outreach in terms of technical materials, and this workshop is the beginning of a new training series that we hope to keep implementing to help raise the bar in terms of green infrastructure planning in San Francisco. But you can go on our website and download all of these free training materials. They're technical guidance documents that we put a lot of work in and I think are fairly helpful. And as I mentioned, this workshop is going to sort of be part of a series of other training workshops. We've partnered with the Department of Public Works and doing lessons learned and reflecting on how the city's doing and trying to improve things, and then to bring in training materials and speakers and trainings for people throughout the city to try to improve green infrastructure, because it's a new area for many of us, and we're trying to just make sure that we're getting the best in the industry type of practices to be available to everyone here. And so we're working on a design training, construction inspection, and a maintenance and monitoring training currently. And lastly, one of the things I mentioned at the beginning is that we've been having a stormwater week basically here, and one of the great efforts that's going on is we've got an add back project where we get a little bit of money given back to us from the supervisors, and we have been working with the school district to put a demonstration of stormwater management at the Stevenson School. And so yesterday, the teams all met together and brainstormed about how to spend these dollars with Birgit on how to make the project have as many benefits as possible. So this is exciting, and can keep your eye on this as an outcome. And one of the things we'll do is take today's training and make it available online as a video, and also take a summary document of this effort so that it'll be available for people to sort of be stepped through the process on an actual site. And that is the end. So I am going to turn this over to Nick, and he's right here.
All right, my name is Nick Kestner. I'm the Sustainability Director for the SF Public Schools. And my job in a nutshell is to reduce energy use, water use, trash, and solo car trips. But one of the things that I have obviously dabbled in is green schoolyards, because not only do they provide educational opportunities at our schools, but is a great way to connect our students to the environment and to help foster that connection that will lead to future sustainability directors like myself. So I'm just going to give a very brief overview of how stormwater management and green schoolyards fit in at SFUSD. At one point, well, we've had for quite some time a bond program that contributes some significant funding to green schoolyards in the district. But in 2011, a group of us went to Berlin to check out schoolyards like this one, and we met Birgit, which is part of the reason that Birgit is now here, not the only reason. But we've had a long relationship with her and tried to figure out ways in which we can take the lessons from Berlin back to SFUSD. So we call that the future of greening. Our bond program works like this. A small percentage, usually about $5 million of each bond that's passed in San Francisco by the voters, is set aside for green schoolyard projects. And since 2003, we've had 3 bonds that have contributed $14 million, and actually a little more than that, towards green schoolyard projects. In general, what that means is that schools are given an opportunity to use up to $150,000 worth of construction money and more for design to try to create a green schoolyard, an outdoor classroom of sorts. And an example of a successful transformation happened at Schoolyards Park, where the schoolyard at the top left there in 1991 was turned into its current form on the bottom right. And that actually showed voters the benefit of doing this, and has allowed us to continue to have green schoolyard money available each bond subsequently. Here's another site that was transformed, Buena Vista Horseman K-8 school, and unfortunately my animation isn't working. Otherwise, you would see it transform before your very eyes. We have a lot of green schoolyards because we've had a lot of time to work at this. So in every neighborhood of our city, we have green schoolyards popping up, and some of the photos of the kinds of things that you'll see happening on our school sites as we speak. The focus for us, especially in the early days, has mainly been, and this is largely driven by the school sites and largely driven by the fact that we are an education organization, has been outdoor classrooms. How do we take science education, STEM education, and get the kids to do some of that, not within the 4 walls of their classroom, but outside in the garden where they can get their hands dirty, where they can really learn and see the principles in action instead of just reading about them in a book or watching a video. So that has been kind of the main focus. Because we're in San Francisco, we also care a lot about food. So a lot of the parents, of course, want their kids to try sorrel and all kinds of other plants directly from the schoolyard, and we hear stories of kids that are eating stuff in the schoolyard that they would never touch at home at the dinner table. So this is obviously part of our mission just because of where we are. But then, as I mentioned, we went to Berlin in 2011, and one of the things we noticed is that in Berlin there's a strong emphasis on nature play. Getting the kids to just be outside and in nature, not always playing basketball, but sometimes they might be playing with some water, they might be going through tunnels, they might be hiding in a little nook and cranny and having conversations, or doing, you know, if they're younger kids, make-believe play and coming up with various scenarios, you know, if you have kids, how they like to play. And we realized that that's something that, even though some of this nature play made it into our master plans, since we only have $150,000 to work with in most cases, we hadn't really thought about or we haven't gotten around to incorporating nature play into our classrooms. So that's one thing that we'd like to change, and we have done so already in the last few years. And the other thing that is very big in Berlin, probably because they do get a little bit more rain than we do, is managing stormwater. So a lot of times they like to make the stormwater visible, as seen here. And these are all photos from Birgit. And then afterwards, they actually make sure that water percolates on site. In fact, I believe in Berlin, they have to do that by law. So this kind of idea of a zero stormwater discharge is something that I'm really excited about, because last year at the district, we committed to zero energy schools going forward. And maybe the next project could be for us to get a working group together to figure out how to have zero stormwater discharge schools as our next big challenge. As a result of these efforts and the inspiration in Berlin, we put together a master plan with Sharon Danks, or with her firm, for Star King Elementary School. Ended up being a very challenging project because of the site. But the goal was not just to do an outdoor classroom in the corner of the yard somewhere, but to really try to transform the whole site. Now this is the master plan. We were able to do most, but not all of this. And now we're waiting for those plants to come in and for kind of that lush feeling to really take over at Star King. And here, as you can see, is some of the early photos right after planting. So our goal with this week and with our work back at the school district is to try to figure out how we can layer those multiple uses into our yards so that they function not just as ball play space, but also stormwater. They have some stormwater functionality, and that kids who play in different ways can all find a place on the schoolyard that works for them. And one of the people who helped us get to this point is Sharon Danks, now the CEO of Green Schoolyards America. So let me introduce Sharon and let her tell us a little bit about how this fits into the national context.
Thanks, Nick. Very happy to be here today with all of you. I'm Sharon Danks. I run a nonprofit called Green Schoolyards America. My background is environmental city planning. And the work I do now is to try to improve the environment in cities by changing the landscapes where children learn and play every day, and with the goal of improving the city's well-being and children's well-being at the same time. Green Schoolyards America's work includes research into best practices, outreach with school districts, and partnerships with public agencies, and also policy change work to try to make this an easier field to work in the future. So what is the need? My goal here in this short presentation is to show you kind of what the international context looks like in this field, and also what our local and state efforts have been so far. And so why do we need this work? Our cities have been changing over time, and the way that children access cities has changed over time. This graphic is a famous one from England, where which could be, but the idea resonates everywhere. This is 4 generations of one family, and how far an 8-year-old could travel on their own at different times in the last 100 years. The biggest bubble with a 6-mile radius is a great-grandfather in 1919 at 8 years old who could go 6 miles from his house. And his child in the 50s could go 1 mile from his house. His child in the, I think the late 70s could go about 1/2 mile, and the current child basically goes to the end of the block. And so what this means to me as someone who cares a lot about children and school landscapes is that those school landscapes are the places where our children are now experiencing the city, and they're experiencing the outdoors. And what they generally look like in California cities is this. And so this lacks the challenge and the adventure and learning from nature that the kids had in previous generations. And so part of what we're trying to do is give that opportunity for exploration and adventure and challenge back to them in nature exploration every day. And we have the power to do that when we work together. This is Tuleoc Park Child Development Center in San Francisco, the one that kicked off the greening work here in many ways. And if you look in the background there where the buildings are in 1991 and watch them disappear, this is the same shot from 2001 after they've had renovation, and 2007 as those plants all grew in. So we can really change the environments our children access, and in so doing, kind of also change the message of care to children that our city sends to them. In the first picture, this one really says adults don't really care so much about children, and this one, children are a priority, like the hidden curriculum, some people call it, of school grounds. So we're looking to express care and improve children's learning and play environments while improving ecological context. And in a lot of ways, that really is about, ultimately, children's happiness in cities. So this also correlates with, right now is a great time for, the education curriculum is being reformulated in many ways. We're switching from a 1940s paved schoolyard with war preparations as the goal toward one that is more hands-on learning and preparation for 21st century skills. And to do that, we need the hands-on outdoor learning laboratories that we get with the Green Schoolyard. This is also an equity issue because the kids in the cities typically have access to green space if they live in wealthier neighborhoods and less access if they live in poorer communities. And so if we put a green schoolyard in every school, kids have every child can have access to nature every day. The impact is also that, as Nick was saying, school districts are one of the largest landowners in every city. And the choices that they make about the collective land use are important for the ecology of our neighborhoods. In California alone, we have about 10,000 schools that serve over 6 million kids, and they together manage 130,000 acres. And most of that is in the center of the neighborhoods, most of it's paved. So what we're calling for is really working on the resilience of cities, taking the complex problems that face cities and inviting more partners to join the efforts to work together to change the way that to change the environments in cities, specifically where it impacts children at school. And then the green infrastructure benefits that arise, in addition to what Rosie was talking about, echoing some of what she was saying also. This enriches education, it improves local ecological systems. We inspire the next generation to be environmental stewards, to understand what it looks like when ecological systems work. And we connect children and communities to nature. So for us, living school grounds are places that incorporate learning opportunities, ecology, play, place, health, and community, all woven together. The international context for this, there's a lot going on around the world. The US is part of a dialogue, and in fact, Birgit Teichmann and others in this room participate in the International School Grounds Alliance, which is an organization I'm involved with as well. And so these examples I'll be showing you here are drawn from different places, but generally people are looking at how kids can be doing activities in schools rather than only being told about curriculum. We look at the wide range of active play that happens in schoolyards, also the child-directed nature exploration-oriented play, health and well-being and how edible gardens and shade and mental health can be improved by adding plants. Energy systems can be taught, and the schools can be, as Nick was saying, net zero. Natural and salvage materials, putting natural materials within the reach of every child is one of our goals in cities. Improving wildlife habitat in a way kids can see and interact with, and managing stormwater. So here's two really brief examples from countries other than Berlin, Germany. This is in Sweden, Malmö, Sweden, where one school has a pretty extensive stormwater system I'll walk through real quickly, where they have living roofs to slow the rainfall down on a lot of their classroom buildings, and then it's very clear where the water goes from the downspout, from the top of that classroom building down the downspout through this channel system that kids can see, and then it goes across their playground, in this example, into a seating area that's been designed to temporarily hold the water when it's raining, and then it soaks in. They also have an overflow area in this basketball court that can just be used normally for basketball otherwise. And then in the park behind the school, the larger overflow system allows the stormwater to soak in. So it's all integrated on that side. Similarly in Taiwan, they're also thinking a lot about water, and this school right on the edge of Taipei has, the principal here is showing us one of 16 cisterns that collect enough water from the roof to be able to flush every toilet in the whole elementary school all year round. And they have great interpretive displays to explain how the building is a teaching tool to the kids and how it works. This is their idea of permeable paving, different materials, same idea. And there's a creek that is running through the foreground and a natural hot spring in the back that's been turned into a place for the kids in the community. Their permeable playground also looks like this in other areas. And they have a constructed wetland for stormwater treatment up to the left there, and a creek that runs through that kids can play in during recess. Another school in Taipei has a gray water system for their hand wash water in their outdoor sinks. So after you come in from recess, wash your hands. It gets cleaned by the tanks, goes through more filtration underground, and the principal in this picture is showing us how much fun it is to play with stormwater, which they're allowed to do, or hand wash water, which they're allowed to do. And then that also infiltrates on the edge of their schoolyard. So these ideas are really becoming pervasive around the world, and it's great to see San Francisco moving in this direction, and others too. We have a wide variety of things happening here. Not too many large examples, a lot more smaller garden examples, which are great. But we're looking to scale up the infrastructure scale examples. I like to say moving from a bake sale funded model of greening our schoolyard to an infrastructure scale model. That's what we're trying to do. We have the government of California voted to pass the Living Schoolyard Month resolution in 2014, which declares the month of May to be Living Schoolyard Month and asks all schools to design and construct student-accessible green space on their grounds. So that resolution passed unanimously. It doesn't have any money, but they say they agree with us, which is good. Not yet. That's round 2. The Department of Education also just recently created a blueprint for environmental literacy, and this document, for the first time, the state of California is now going to be asking students in their education program to go outside to learn things, which hadn't been there in the past. So we have a push from the education side, which is great. And then we're starting to see some state funding over the last 10 years that has been able to be used for school grounds, Prop 84, the DROPS grant with stormwater, specifically for stormwater money for schools, and some Prop 1 funds. But there's one coming down the pipeline in March that isn't, the RFQ is not available yet, but this one is connected to cap and trade greenhouse gas reduction funds, and it's money for carbon sequestration. So they would like a lot of trees planted. It's $80 million for the state to apply for community locations. Schools are eligible, and tree planting is a key part of it. They also have some other things covered as well, but they're also targeting low-income communities as places that they would like to see this happen. And I believe that it will be published, the guidelines will be published in March. So in general, I'd say that the field now has all the technical information we need to know to do this work, but we aren't quite there yet. This is an issue of consensus, and so we need everyone to work together to be able to do these larger, complex projects. And today is about understanding what those partnerships might look like, and how we can work together to make this a reality for kids. So now I have the honor of introducing my friend and colleague, Birgit Teichmann, who is a landscape architect from Berlin, Germany. And she has been working in this field for more than 20 years. She has a landscape architecture and stormwater background, and she also does fantastic work with participatory design, which you'll see some examples of. So please join me in providing a warm welcome for Birgit Teichmann.
So, yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Welcome. It's great to have so many people coming to this talk. And I'm a landscape architect from Berlin. I have an office in Berlin with several employees, and I've been working in this field, specialized in schoolyards and kindergartens, and we have been working in this field specified on schoolyards and kindergartens and all kinds of public spaces for education for about 25 years, actually. So I'm happy to tell you something about our work, which always came out as green school grounds. And And this presentation will just give you a short overview about the history in Berlin and the context, the climate context. I will show you some case studies illustrating the benefits and impacts of our work, the policy, the funding, and the collaboration. It's a difficult word in this field. So Berlin, as you know, was a divided city. There was a wall around West Berlin in the middle of East Germany from 1961 until 1989. And in 1989, the wall fell. At 1961, when the wall was built, it looked like this. This is the center of Berlin. It's Brandenburger Tor. So the wall went right through the middle of the city, which used to be a very devastated area because of the wall. And after the wall came down, today, the whole infrastructure was rebuilt. So there was a big necessity to build infrastructure in Berlin after the wall came down. And there was a lot of funding for urban and environmental planning. So because we pay so much taxes, there's there's a good outcome for the infrastructure, and this is especially schools and preschools. And of course also streets. And so in 2000, Germany funded a national program to reduce environmental impact. It's called Umweltentlastungsprogramm. And so this goes on until today. And there was another EU funding from 22 until today. Which is for urban revitalization in Stadtumbau Ost und West. So it's in East and West Berlin. And this is basically because those two different parts of the city were developed so differently because of the wall. After the wall came down, all the investment went into East Berlin, which came out West Berlin being far behind. And now it's going all into West Berlin. And it's pretty much always put into those areas that are less developed and like mostly poor areas. So this is where the most funding goes to. In 2009, from 2009 to 2015, after the economic crisis, we had an economic recovery package, which was also to get the economy going. And so we spend money on schoolyards to keep the construction companies and the planners and everybody in work. And the climate context in Berlin is our temperature goes from, in high peaks in the summer, more than 100 Fahrenheit for short periods, down in the winter to temperatures below 0. So we also have snow in the winter, and we have rain, which is precipitation altogether, is from 1.5 inch up to 3 inches per month. So, and as I realized this week, San Francisco has a lot of rain too. So, our groundwater and drinking water system is pretty in a good situation because Berlin gets all its drinking water from the groundwater within his city limits. And this also works so well because we have 13 lakes and 5 rivers and 224 miles of shoreline, including those rivers and lakes. And so the water from those water bodies goes into the system and into the groundwater. And we also try to infiltrate as much as possible. So we, the Public Utility Commission has 800 groundwater wells where they get the water up and then into the plants, drinking water plants, and then send it to the household. So municipal water supply companies provide 38.8 million cubic feet drinking water daily. And the drinking water was just recently in the newspaper and in news in Berlin is better than bottled water, which is special because we have a lot of restrictions for bottled water. So in the drinking water is a lot of minerals, and you know it's healthy to drink it. So to improve and to get more infiltration on the sites, Berlin has a stormwater fee, and every landowner has to pay an annual stormwater fee. So and it's measured by the amount of paved or sealed space on your ground. So you pay $1.9 per square meter, which is 11 square feet of paved surface, and which also includes the building, and then this is going to be calculated, and if it's sealed totally, like asphalt and concrete, you divide it by 1, and if it's less sealed, like permeable or even or pavement or permeable surfaces, it's divided by a lower factor, so it's less square meter you have to pay for and less money. The more you infiltrate, the less you have to pay. And if you put greening on your roof, so right now almost every new building has green roofs, even also extensive green roofs. So to minimize the water that goes into the system. And if there's vegetation or soil, you don't have to pay your rainwater fee. So like in the ideal situation, you would just pay for your roof, and if it's greened, only half of the square meters of the roof. So this is really something, so every landowner tries to infiltrate as much water as possible on the site, and this also is for public buildings. So also the municipal agencies are also interested to infiltrate as much water as possible on the sites from the schoolyards. So this is just to show you how our schoolyards look before we change them. And after this, it's a green schoolyard. And as you can see, it's very green, and its water is infiltrated to 100% on the site. So I would just like to show you Galilei Grundschule. I know this is hard to see on this picture, but this is it's in the middle of the city in an urban environment. It's a school for about 800 kids, maybe 600, I think. And when we went there, we got money from the environmental program to reduce impact on the environment. And so we decided to change the school ground to infiltrate all the water on the site and to also get all the water from the roofs, which is shown on this picture, which before we came just went through from the roofs on into those pipes and into the public sewer system, and to change it to also have the water from the roofs on the site and to infiltrate it there. So this is the plan for the schoolyard. And you can see the roofs from those buildings. And all the green stuff, this is what we planned, and this is what we built on the site. So it's all open surface, so that the rainwater just drains on the site. So this arrow shows you that we are, for the next picture, sitting in the building, looking out the window into this green space before building, or when we were start building, the building process. So there were some trees and some hedges. So we put in this is the structure for the kids to play, and then we planted. So this is the result. And so all the rainwater, stormwater infiltrates on the site. And then we had a special feature for those roofs, and the arrow shows you an area on the main schoolyard. And this is where we built a tank. So we cut off the pipes that go to the street, and we put in a tank, and we put some topography there, so the tank is on top. It's not under the under the usual level, so that it's hidden under soil, and the tank just got all the water from the roofs and was there to hold it back and then send it out in an overflow after a period of time to make it more suitable for the system for the infiltration on the site. And after the plants were growing on this is the same spot. It's a green area. It's in the middle of the schoolyard. And where we put on the topography to hide the tank, we installed an amphitheater. So the whole thing is integrated in the playground for the kids. It's the technical part. So then the water, when it rains, goes down this little creek, and down there, so I showed this is the arrow down there where the water comes down. It goes into an area where it's retention area, which is also after a certain time green. And this is where all the roof water is going to infiltrate. So the whole thing is zero stormwater fee, which is great for the city because they don't have to pay this. And by the way, it's a playground for the kids. And also I want to show you some other examples how to infiltrate the water on the site. When you look down in the school ground, we also use permeable paver with green gaps, and which is very suitable for wheelchairs. And we also build topography for the planting, and small walls to hold to make it more robust for the kids' use. So this is an area where the kids can really play without destroying all the nature. And so when we look down the schoolyard, it's basically like a green landscape. And on the bottom of the schoolyard, we have play structures. So we have everywhere open soil. And this is like a slide in the landscape, and there's natural stone. It's a natural stone wall, which is supposed to be a climbing wall. And on this picture, it's not carved, but later the kids carved this into a sculpture so they can climb on there. We put in a swing, and I also wanted to show you that the sporting area on the school ground has a plastic surface, which is supposed to be permeable, but usually it doesn't work when it's really heavy rain. So we have this drain here that leads into the tank and into the system. The total cost of the whole project, Galilei Schule, was about 500,000 euros, which is about $700,000 at this time. Not today, unfortunately for me. And I just want to tell you this because it's a cost-saving design. Because green is always less expensive to install than concrete and asphalt on pavement. The more green, the less expensive. And we also try to use internal materials and not bring things into the site. So when we unseal concrete, we oftentimes use it to build small walls for the planting beds or to have paver with green gaps. And also with the soil, we try to have a mass balance. So the goal is always to have no off-haul. The benefits for the urban environment by these designs is that there's a reduced pavement, increased green spaces for the kids, which is so important because the schoolyard is the last green reserve within the city limits where the kids can play protected and develop. How do you say this? And well, can play with the nature. It's improved microclimate, which is also very important, not only for the environment, but also for the school itself. Like within these small yards, like on this picture, it's a lot better to have a good microclimate also for the classrooms. Less reduced dust levels, higher humidity levels, temperature moderation, which is also important because we have more high temperature, dry times in Berlin. And so we have temperature moderation and improved stormwater management. And the benefits are also for children's well-being. So we can build spaces for outdoor learning. We can build spaces for different interests and needs for the kids in the outdoors. Spaces for range of climbing, all different kinds of climbing, and movement possibilities. Spaces for recreation and relaxation within the school time, but also after school. So we open this schoolyard after the school for the public and close it for dust. Another benefit is social emotional development and violence prevention, because we always have the school community participating in planning and construction. So this is skill building in collaboration and negotiation techniques for the students. So to discuss about the plan and how, what do we want, what we don't want, what is really important for us, what should we get rid of. Because it's always hard to think about the things you might want to have when you have just a plain concrete schoolyard in front of you. It's really hard to imagine, and it's a process to understand that it is possible to change it, and it's possible to do a lot of things. And because students and teachers and parents are involved in the planning and the building, we have reduced vandalism. And because we open it after school for the public, it also reduces vandalism. And it reduces violent behavior and bullying within the at recess and after school, because kids have a lot more possibility to play and to also find their own spaces, so they are not always confronted with the ones they don't want to be with. Other benefits: reduce, reuse, recycle. So, so we try to use recycled materials. You can see these big concrete. We also have these big concrete paved areas that we broke, unsealed, and then put them together and put them into a topography. So this is a place for recreation for the kids. And I think it's always very important in our planning that you try to find the most and make the most of the site's potential. So see what's really there. Is there a chance to build topography, or is there already any topography there? Are there plants? Are there trees? Is there shade where it's sunny? So really see the potentials of the site to make it in the end more. Our goal is always when you come after the construction to the site, people say and think this has always been like this. So it doesn't look artificial. It's supposed to look like a real piece of nature, and it has been there for 20 years. And so we also, for watering the plants, which is necessary in the summer, we build groundwater wells. You have to get a permit for this to irrigate the plants, which could also be done by the kids. This is another plan from another school. This is where there was a whole quarter, a whole area in the city, also in the middle of the city, where only public buildings, a school, kindergarten, university, and gymnasium. And the whole quarter was supposed to be infiltrated, stormwater of the whole quarter was supposed to be infiltrated on the site. So for the roofs, we put in, so we cut off the whole thing of the sewer pipes, urban sewer pipes from the street. And for the buildings, we have those pipes that go into a retention, where it's like retention under the surface, where it's going to be infiltrated after a time. And there was an overflow to the river Spree, which is on the downside of this picture. And the Spree is a river in Berlin, main river. And we got money for this project from the Environmental Impact Reduce program. And because there was a schoolyard, we also unpaved the schoolyard and built a green and living schoolyard. So it looked like this before, or like this. We also have concrete and asphalt. And after the construction, we had permeable pavers, different ways of permeable pavers, a lot of plants. And this is another yard on the school ground, which was, the school was really complaining about the climate in the summer, because this was like a little oven. When the sun came into this yard, the kids couldn't play there, and it had a lot of bad impact on the classrooms. And this is after the planning. So you can already tell by looking at it, it feels a lot better. So it does something to your conscious sight. Yeah, it does. It's not just an optical thing. It's also something when we talk about well-being for the kids. It really changes their behavior. When you are in an environment like this, you behave different than in an environment like this. I think this is very obvious, and this is what we always try to do. So we installed a playing area. We had like different natural materials. We use hardwood. We use natural stones, and to build all features of play areas for the kids. This is the climbing stone, also for the kids that they climb themselves together with an artist who knows how to do it. We don't let them do it themselves. And this is something I want to tell you about the funding for those projects. So we always have different levels of funding. It's European funding, then it's Germany country funding, and then it's state. Berlin is state and city. I think this is San Francisco too. So, and for the whole thing to work, it's very important that all these levels work together. And in Germany, it's organized in a way that you have government influence in every level. So EU is country, or EU is European level. Country management is the next one. Then you have the state and county government. They are responsible for the funding process, and they are selecting the high need areas. So we always also put the most money into the high need areas to receive increased fundings. And this is also where Grünmacht-Schule, which is an institution that works like an NGO, but they work for the state to inform schools and everybody who wants to change their schoolyard, how they get funding and how they get to do it. And then there's a city district government. They do the project management for the city districts. This is also where we have our public, this is what I think you call public works. So those guys are there too, and they also coordinate the neighborhood groups. They have the funding oversight, and when we do the construction, they take care of the bidding process management, so that the whole money, which is government money, is spent right. So this is all very much restricted. And and in those high need areas, we have also a government level. It's like a neighborhood government, local government, and this is the agency where neighborhoods that are engaged and NGOs that are engaged can go to and talk about their needs and what they want, and then they can help them to get funding on other levels, because it's always hard from a lower level to go to a higher and find the right structure to get this done. So this is like you have to go in certain steps, and this is how this works. So on this local neighborhood level, I know this is German, you can't read this, but so I just want to show you that this is, they have different funding. It's called action funding. So if you want to if somebody has a good idea for a project and it's about 1,500 euros, which is dollars now, it's really easy to get this done. So on a small level. Then this project funding, 5,000 euros. So you need to go to another level to start with the neighborhood. You go one level up, and then there's construction funding, which is more than 500,000 euros. So this is then you need more approval from higher levels. But you can also be active on a low level with small projects, which is so important for identification with the neighborhood and less violence and less vandalism. And this is all about infrastructure money. And when it's also when it's on higher, when it's a lot more money, then it's goes within the EU standards. So this is how we plan and build our green schoolyards. And thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. We have some time now for questions. If anyone in the audience would like to ask her questions, I'll bring the mic over to you.
Are there regulations beyond, your stormwater and groundwater regulations? Are there municipal codes also that require or encourage green schoolyards?
Yeah, it's also it's on different. It has different ways. Just so there's one, which is environmental, which is the stormwater encouragement, and there's also the school district, which is interested in having curriculum-based schoolyards, because this is what they are. So there's this impact. And there is also from those, what you would, from the green department on the state level. I think this is your public works department. They are always interested in having schoolyards they can, with low maintenance, and they can handle. So it's like, it has different drivers. Okay.
Hi, it's really exciting to see your projects. I'm wondering if you've noticed in the last 10 years or so, as children have become more technologically savvy and that sort of thing, if you find them interacting in a different way in the schoolyards that you've designed, or if you've followed that over the years. That's one question. And another question is sort of the average size of these projects in terms of square meters.
Yeah, I can tell you square meters, that's not a problem, but don't ask me about square yards. So, well, yeah, the impact on the children, so it's pretty much, we have a lot of discussions about this. The children are more within the new technologies right now, so they finally have less capability to their yes right coordinates to their coordination of their movement, which is really a problem, because they it's because when they are small they are able to learn this really fast, because the brain is made to learn this when they are small. And when they sit in front of the computer all day long, it's like they miss this part of their development. And it's not possible to gain this later in the way they would have learned it when they were small. So it's even more important to do this, because they really need to learn this when they are small. And they really need to learn. It's not only about physical education, it's also about it's about all your minds. I'm going to talk about this in the second presentation a little bit more. It's also about well, all your senses. So it's a lot more important to do this for them. They get a lot enough of all the technology stuff in the classrooms, so we really want them outside to develop other senses and to have the chance to get all hands in the dirt. And the size of those schoolyards is very different. So we have some in a very tight urban environment that are too small for this amount of children, so they have breaks in 2 charges. So they go, so they might have maybe only 2,000 square meters. And we also have large schoolyards which are more on the outside of the city that are about 10,000 square meters. So it's always, you know, but you can do this very always. Every schoolyard and every school is very unique, and you have to make it really fit to this place and to this situation. And there's always a way to do it.
I have a technical question. So you talked about roof water being captured and directly fed into the garden spaces. And in some of the stormwater features that you show, the water is transparent, where the kids are using it as a river or for play.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any public health concerns with water coming from the roof and being exposed in such a way in Berlin?
Yeah. It depends on the material. The roof is sealed. So if it's copper, it's hard. You know, it's hard to let this flow.
So there's some
infiltrate.
requirements on the roof
There
material.
are requirements, right?
Mhm. Okay.
So, but this is because we have so many old buildings. It's sometimes hard, but when you build a new one, you can really always, you know, make it the way that it works well with the water running off in an open flow. Do you say this? Yeah.
Okay. So you have to take those into consideration in your
Yes.
your
yes.
design.
We have restrictions for everything.
Okay. All right. Because in San Francisco we have restrictions like that, I believe. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Could you speak a little bit about your process when you get involved and some time associated with it? For example, is your involvement as a landscape architect after the project has been funded, or are you involved with helping to get the funding? And when you are asked to work on the design, are you intimately involved with the school and the children in the planning? And how long does that take as an average or range?
Okay. Okay. So we always plan with participation with the students and the teachers and the school community. And I think the whole process is about approximately 2 years. So it starts with everybody gets this information. Like the school has to have the idea, we want this. This is very important. You can't, you know, they really have to have this concern to change their schoolyard. And then they go to this institution I told you, Grün macht Schule, which is some state level, and this is their job to inform the school. Okay, if you are interested, and so they know how, you know, what changes those schools in when they are in a special need area. They have more possibilities to get funding, or what kind of funding is suitable for this school. So they help the school to find the right funding. And then the school goes to the city district, and they pretty much organize the whole thing, and with all different levels, on upper levels of funding. So sometimes it's like a waiting list. So the school is already signed into a program, but it takes 2 or 3 years to come to the point where they can get the funding, because there's maybe others that are more important, but it's like a list. And when there's the funding, this is usually the point where we come into the project. So there's always a funding that's already it's already it's limited. So we always have a certain, you know, goal. You have to do this within this limit, within this funding. And then we start the participation process. This is what we do with the school. sometimes in rare cases, we also talk to the school about the funding, but usually we send them to Grünmachtschule because they just have the better networks on this. And participation, we plan, we build models, we make a master plan, we discuss the master plan with the school back and forward until we have a plan that is suitable for most of the needs. We won't meet everybody, but most of the needs. And then there's the construction process. So we also have a bidding for building companies, and then we make the supervision, like landscape architects, for the building process. We also make the technical planning in advance. So this looks chaotic, but it's not. It's very well planned. Like every, I'm going to talk about this in the second presentation. And so when we have this all technical planning, construction, building permits, construction, and then finally we also have the students work within the building process on certain spots. So, no, we are involved from the beginning.
You focused on school gardens, but to what extent are these principles being integrated into the broader public realm? Obviously, the realm of the school is that would be maybe the first priority when we want to bring this kind of experience on the benefits to children side. There's the ecological benefits too. What about the broader urban landscape of Berlin? City parks or neighborhoods, are these same kinds of practices being integrated into that space?
Well, we have, Berlin just made last year, 2016, a new program. It's called Stadtentwicklungsprogramm. It's a Stadtentwicklungsprogramm. It's a long word. It's city development program for climate. It's about how to meet the former needs for the climate change, and it tells it's about all the how to change the city and the green structure and in terms of water and heat to make it suitable. And they have on different types of urban environment, they give advices how to do it. And this is something everybody who's going to build has to follow. So they also have guidelines for schoolyards, but they have them for areas where there is housing and public parks and public places, and like this is for the whole city.
And does nature play a factor in their planning?
Sorry. Yeah, we have a very exciting new project. It's called Nature Experience Room, and so there's going to be an exhibition next year. It's an international garden show, and this is where we have our first nature experience room and area. And this is made for kids to play in the nature, in a wood, without adult supervision, and within the safety standards. So this is very challenging, but it's because we understand that this is necessary, but we know it's hard to meet the safety standards, and we try to make it work.
Great. And now we're going to pause for a break and some networking and coffee and food.